Hey guys, welcome back to Coffee and Questions. I'm so glad you could join us today as we continue our conversation about questions that you might have about different things. And so I'm always interested in what your questions are. So if you have a question, please let me know and I'll do what I can to see about answering that. So today I thought, Easter is not that far away. I don't know if you realize that, but Easter is, April 21st. And so it's getting close to just about a month away. And so I was thinking, what better thing to do than, like I did in Christmas, spending some time answering questions about Christmas. Let's answer some questions that people have about Easter, and see if we can't come up with some answers to some of the different myths and different thoughts that surround Easter. Now, Easter, if you are familiar with Christianity, if you grew up in church or you attend a church now, you're probably aware that Easter is the day in which we celebrate Jesus's, not his death, but his resurrection from the grave. And it's an incredibly important day to Christianity, because it celebrates the day in which Jesus defeated death and he can give out new life, because we know that he defeated death and rose from the grave. And there's been many myths that have come up around that surround it, and I don't know why these myths have shown up and why they're so persistent, except perhaps maybe it's that excitement of, whoa, maybe there's more to this than what we really think there is, but there's not really. In fact, most of everything that you experience as part of Easter comes from some fairly good Christian backgrounds. And so this idea that Christianity has borrowed and stole different elements from different religions to create this holiday called Easter is not true. So today I just wanted to look at the name Easter, and perhaps you've heard there's one of two things out there, one of two myths that have been put out there as to where the name Easter comes from. And we know you can grab any Bible and you can look through it and you won't find the word Easter in it anywhere. That's not a word that was used in connection to Jesus' death and birth and resurrection, or death and resurrection, and at any point and in the Bible. Most likely originally it was connected with the Passover feast, and his resurrection would have been celebrated, I'm sure, but they may not have had a specific name for it. So there's been a couple of proposals as to where the name Easter comes from. And one of the most popular ones is that Easter was named after this Germanic or ancient English goddess named Eostre or Iestra, and something along those lines, and that was the name of the month, the Easter month, and something along those lines, and that people used to celebrate these festivals to Eostre, and because of that, that's where the name came from, that we as Christians celebrated our, the feast about Jesus' resurrection at the same time, and so we just sort of picked up the name. And that's actually got very little evidence to support that. You know that the only person that supported was this monk who was writing in the 8th century, so we're talking the 700s. He is the only one to reference Eostre. In fact, he mentions in passing that very myth, that concept, that's where the name Easter comes from. But here's the crazy thing. You know what? We don't even know if Eostre existed. In fact, we can't find any reference to a goddess named Eostre outside, pretty much exclusively can only be found in this writing by this monk named Bede, B-E-D-E. All right, and before that, there's no manuscripts, there's no writings, we don't have any shrines, we don't have any altars, we don't have anything that's dedicated to this goddess Eostre. So it seems that Bede had just created this goddess Eostre to explain the name of the month that the Germans used used to call April, and he created this goddess, and we don't have any evidence for her anywhere outside of his writing. In fact, after that, sure, her name starts showing up, but before that, there's no sign of existence for this goddess. So that doesn't even make sense. No, then. In the 1850s, a guy named Jacob Grimm, Grimm's fairy tales. He was working on trying to come up with why do we call Easter Ostara in the German. That's what he was, and he creates, and I mean, we're talking literal fabrication. There is absolutely no evidence of a goddess named Ostara, but he creates this goddess Ostara to give an explanation for the name Easter. Before him, there is no reference to Ostara, and so this concept that the name Easter came from these pagan goddesses is actually not accurate at all. In fact, there's a very good explanation that quite possibly that it came from a Latin word meaning in albis, something along those lines, a Latin word that meant at daybreak, and which translates to a very closely Easterno, and I don't know the exact words. I'll put it in the description below so you can read the exact words and things like that. And so it's quite possibly, it's just that Easter came from the name for the month of April, where when day was breaking, and spring was coming, and the month of winter, the winter was done, and the spring was coming, and so. We don't have any evidence at all that Easter came from the name, some pagan goddess. We don't even think those goddesses existed anymore. Those are completely fabricated. So what about Ishtar? Some people connect Easter with Ishtar, and this is, again, it's a good evidence for this concept of these two things sound somewhat similar. They both end in R sounds, so they must be connected. No, it's not true. All right, Ishtar is this pagan fertility sex goddess of the Babylonian and Mesopotamian area, and there's very little reason to connect the two. In fact, there's nothing really. Someone said, "Oh, her animal was a bunny and she handed out eggs." That's not true. Her sacred animal was actually a lion. And so it doesn't make sense. There's not that connection there, right? Easter has its roots in Christianity. Easter has its roots in the reality that Jesus Christ, who died on the cross to pay for our sins, came back to life on Easter morning, and that is worth celebrating. By giving our lives to Christ and recognizing the new life that He is able to give us when we submit ourselves to Him. So that's the answers to where the name Easter comes from. Thanks, guys. I hope this helps you out. We're going to be looking at other Easter-themed questions over the next few days. We'll talk about the Easter bunny. Where did that come from? We're going to talk about Easter eggs. Where does that tradition come from? And I don't know what else we'll cover, but we'll talk about those things in the near future. So thanks, guys, for tuning in. I hope to see you again next week. Bye.